Pecha Kucha 165, Superior Spider-Man Volume 2. So this is the end of the Superior Spider-Man run. I knew that buying it. I'm glad it did have an end, because that's how I like my stories to go, even if they're contained within works of fiction that have been ongoing for several decades. So, a little recap. Peter Parker has had his mind swapped with Dr. Octopus. The Superior Spider-Man is Otto Octavius in the body of Peter Parker, trying to prove he can do a better job of living Peter Parker's life. So far, so good, until this volume, which starts with Spider-Man from 2099, effectively having to try and combat time dissolving as he fights biplanes and dinosaurs, because heaven forbid we do something original. And what he ends up doing is going back in time after talking to whoever the main bad guy is in his continuum, a guy called Tyler Stone. He has to go back in time and stop whatever's happened that somehow is related to Superior Spider-Man from unmaking time altogether. And this might have been tied to the Avengers doing some kind of time travel as well. And ultimately, Spider-Man from the future has to stop present Spider-Man from killing his granddad. Because that's how Spider-Man rolls these days. Dr. Octopus doesn't pull punches. He literally has to be stopped by other Spider-Men with some degree of morality. The time travel plot arc gets wrapped up by Dr. Octopus failing to solve an equation Peter Parker did. He gets unmade, and he gets returned to the timeline by the people who run the company, that gets absorbed into the company that ultimately runs the future and the Spider-Man 2099 thing. There's a lot of things going on here I'm glossing over. It's not worth worrying about. And then Black Cat shows up, and on the way to a date with his new girlfriend, Spider-Man punches her clean in the face. She loses a tooth. It's so aggressive and violent, and the only point of this is that Peter Parker, when he comes back, is now going to have to deal with a brutally angry Black Cat. Someone else who comes in for no reason other than reasons is Dr. Octopus's old love interest, who has this computer that makes her create a hard light hologram of a superpowered lady called Stunner. So she goes on a rampage trying to get Spider-Man for killing Dr. Octopus. Spider-Man actually gets the machine, uses it to create a holographic version of himself as Dr. Octopus to deal with several life problems he's going through. It's a very interesting subplot where they could have used this hologram thing for all kinds of swerves, but I think editorial had probably pulled the plug at this point. Venom comes along. The symbiote is now with Flash Thompson, the guy who used to bully Peter Parker when he's in school. He became a war veteran. Dr. Octopus, Spider-Man, gets the symbiote and becomes Superior Venom, going on a complete rampage, both in Peter Parker's life and starting a war with the Avengers, which is not the first time Octavius Spider-Man has come to odds with them, but it's and made them look like idiots. But in this time they win because they have to, because Superior Venom's just a step too far. Obviously, because he's having a fight with the Avengers in Times Square, everybody's like, what the hell is Spider-Man doing? This on top of the fact he had an army of Spider-Bots spying on everyone so that Octavius could spend time having a personal life. Public sentiment turns against the Superior Spider-Man, as well as him now literally fighting the Avengers. Ultimately, the symbiotes returned to Agent Venom, Flash Thompson. Peter Parker's ghost returns as the symbiote actually overpowers Octavius and threatens to consume him completely. So here's my least favourite trope back. The ghost of Peter Parker is trapped inside Octavius's head, struggling to survive, while Green Goblin, who's secretly been building a massive army underground, goes to war with Hobgoblin, shows his scar that he famously got when he should have died the first time, in the famous 60s or 70s Spider-Man story. He then absorbs Hobgoblin's army. He then has a sit-down meeting with Spider-Man where he reveals he knows he's Dr. Octopus and offers him a role in his organization as number 2. Octavius is unable to even process this information for a while, but ultimately starts a fight and again uses the holographic computer he had to kind of get out of a trap. Green Goblin then goes about systematically destroying the legacy of both Dr. Octopus when he was Dr. Octopus and his legacy since he became Spider-Man. So towards the end of this book, public opinion is against Octavius. His life work has been destroyed. And Peter Parker's ghost remembers when Peter Parker in Octavius's body reminded both of them of all of their memories. He then uses this to effectively become... To reinvigorate himself. Octavius goes back into his mind control machine, gives control of his body back to Peter Parker, who is now Spider-Man, goes back to wearing his normal costume, goes to have a confrontation with Green Goblin, where he makes a joke where the Green Goblin then realizes, oh snap, it's you again. And for reasons that I'm aware of but can't be bothered to explain, Green Goblin, who should know it's Peter Parker but doesn't, at least realizes he's fighting the real Spider-Man. Green Goblin escapes, due in no small part to his extended family, who are kind of been behind half of these things in the first place. It's like a meta plot thing that I don't really understand or care for. I'm happy it all wrapped up. It was a lot of fun. The art was great. Interesting ideas that could only be as explored as much as they could, given the fact that, you know, Marvel sell comics and they have to sell Peter Parker as Spider-Man. Very good stuff. I was very intrigued from the moment I read the Wikipedia page. I paid good, hard, solid cash for the comics, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. And I also read a book called Peak, which is about practice and how to use it to become a better person, how to be better at practicing to become better at anything, at everything. He talks about, the scientists that wrote this book talk about chess masters, professional athletes, literally people who are best in the world. But really this book's crux is about, if you took that psychology and those training methodologies and applied them to school and work, the world would be changed overnight. It's useful for an artist to just, you know, appreciate that the best way to get good at anything is to realize your flaws, have them pointed out to you if you can't see them yourself, learn how to recognize them, learn how to self-correct, and that way you can become better than your teachers over time. Like all of the people who are the best in the world, they surpassed their teachers very early on by having excellent methodologies. A good book, not necessary to read if you've already read Mastery or anything in that vein. But if you've got nothing to do with your train journeys, you can get this on audiobook as well. It might be worth a look as well. So that brings us to the end of Pecha Kucha 165. And I will see you next time.